And we are live. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and guess recorded. Record to the cloud. Speaker view. Double check. Always takes the 2 seconds to get us 100% sure that we are rocking and rolling, and we are. Yay. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Playing to Win. It's some of my favorite time that I spend each week because I get to interview really, really amazing people, and I get to kind of hand select who I get to spend an hour with and invite them into our listeners' world. So I'm very excited about my guest today. Scott Toombs, I want to welcome you to the show.
Oh, Melanie, thank you so much. You have no idea how stoked I am to spend time with you. So, I mean, you know that, and yet I really am excited. Anytime I get with you is exciting. So that's great. That's great.
You know, Scott, you are just one of those people that any day is a better day in your presence. I don't know if you know that, but you have this infectious energy, and I can't stop smiling when I'm around you.
Oh, that's awesome. See, that's a good thing to say. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, when I thought about, well, who is somebody that we can bring to our audience right now that's going to inspire people and just with their story, because I love getting great stories out into the world. About people that are doing great things. And I think you're really doing great things. And so what I want to do is start with just a little bit about who you are and tell us a little bit of your story, your journey, how you got to where you are today. And then I want to talk, because you do a lot, you know, you as a bold coach and you're an OP, you're all the things. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but I want to share kind of what are some things that for you are really helping people right now, because I'm doing this whole series kind of on leading in the now, and I find that times are different, and you being a coach all over the country, you know, a leader of an office, you know, a father, has all the things, right? Is it's different times that we're in. And so I'd love to kind of touch on some mindset stuff with people today too. Does that sound good?
No, that sounds great. I think that's the important thing. I mean, you know, and you'll find out that 90% of success, not only in our business, but in our families, our relationships, our health, our wealth, you know, is how we think. It's just amazing, Melanie, that everybody has the same amount of time, and yet outcomes are so much different based on what people think during that time and the actions they choose to take during that time. So I'd love to dive into that when we get there. That's awesome.
Okay, let's go there. Okay, well, let's talk about who's Scott Toombs. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I love that. So I'll start at birth. No.
Yeah, right. Where were you born?
Yeah, no. Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. Where I am today is not where I thought I would be. I mean, you have to understand, Melanie. Growing up, I had some learning disabilities in elementary school and got taken out to a trailer in the back of our elementary school. I failed the 7th grade, you know, not a holdback or, you know, a strategic plan. I just failed the 7th grade because I had undiagnosed dyslexia and I wasn't able to read very well. Finally got to go to college and went to college on a football scholarship and first learned that failure is actually opportunity. Gave me another year to mature physically, mentally. So it allowed me to go to college and play college football at Troy University. And then it took me 10 years to get through college with a 4-year degree. So, you know, nothing was setting up for, you know, I was going to have an amazing life. And yet, you know, I had great parents and, you know, it taught me to always take responsibility for my outcomes and to truly let me fail, you know, which is never fun to watch the people that you love, you know, go through pain. And yet it's absolutely the only way that we can learn and succeed. So when I got out of college and moved around, I was out west for a long time until I was about 28, and everything I owned could fit in the back of my Bronco too. And I could see out the back of it. And by the way, I wouldn't trade my life for anybody's. I mean, I was so happy doing what I was doing. But I met my wife out there and came back and was like, you know, I need to get a life, cut my hair, you know, now it's falling out, so I don't have to worry about that. Got a job at 28, and then realized that real estate was something I always wanted to do. Now, I didn't get my real estate license till I was 34, and I moved from Alabama to South Texas. My dad had taken a manufacturing company over to Reynosa, Mexico years before, and we had our first son. And so we wanted to be close to my parents for a while. So we moved down to South Texas. And 9 months after getting my real estate license, I met Wendy Harrelson. And Wendy gave me the opportunity to launch a Keller Williams office with 9 months of real estate experience. I'm sure it's because of the people that surrounded me. And it took off. And you know, they say ignorance is bliss. And in honesty, sometimes it is. When you have no idea of what you're supposed to do and somebody says, do this, and you go, you know what, I'll do that. It's amazing what happens. And then that opportunity led to my second market center I got to open in 2010, which led me to meet Linda and Jimmy McKissick and become the regional director in the Ohio Valley region, which led me to Diana Kokoska in Bold in 2014, to where I am today, which is, you know, so far beyond what we ever imagined. You know, me and my wife sometimes talk about, like, we just didn't imagine this, you know, like it wasn't in our wildest dreams that we would have a life where every day we get up and I get to do things that I absolutely love to do with people that I love to do it with. And so that's kind of my story briefly.
Gosh, that's so well said. So, but every day you get to wake up and do business with people that you want to do business with, or say that last sentence one more time. That was so beautiful.
Yeah, well, I do. Like you know, I get every day I get up and get to work with people that I adore and love. And I don't, you know, I know a lot of people in the world, and I'm not sure they get up very happy, but I can't wait to talk to people. I can't wait to be around the people that we're in. And I'm one that truly loves this industry. Not only our company, yet this industry, because I do believe that this industry can provide so many paths to achieve whatever you desire in your life. I mean, there are so many avenues that real estate gives you, and it gives you unlimited opportunity if you're willing to do what most aren't.
I love that so much. And I didn't know that about you. And that's why I have people like you on the show who I adore. In 7th grade, you're taking out of your environment, put in a different environment because you had learning disabilities, learning challenges, right? So you were different. And then you were held back or failed, like you said. It wasn't strategic, but it all worked out in the long run, because then when you went and played football, it gave you another year to mature your body. I mean, 18 and 17-year-old boy is very different, right? Like your body really starts maturing at that point. So to see now that was an advantage. So somebody that's failing 7th grade and everything's a struggle, and just even the idea of like reading and just with the most normal thing, like breathing, right? Like we take all these things for granted, and yet you were able to go on and play at a college level, a sport, and the dedication and that takes. So how were you able to, though? How are you able to maneuver that? Like, how are you able to, if you have dyslexia, you have dyslexia, like it's a thing, like I can't say it, but so I think that's a different thing. Dyslexia. I cannot say it. How are you able to do that, Scott? Like, how did you, because that's a lot of pressure too with college level courses. And while you're playing, that's a big thing, you know, when you play college sports.
Yeah, well, I think you have to look at it in the 7th grade. You're young. I mean, you're going through weird things. You know that as a 13-year-old. And I was so embarrassed that I failed that I didn't even tell my friends. Like, I've been in the same grade with people since the 1st grade in Alabama, right? And so I was so embarrassed that, you know, the next year my pod moved up to the 8th grade, and I stayed there, and the 6th graders moved up to where I was at. And you know, in hindsight, it was embarrassing, you know, and what it started to do, Melanie, is tick away at how I thought about myself. Because you're right. Like when you get in the 1st grade, when you get taken out of a room, you think you're special, right? When I was in the 1st grade, it's the first time that I had to walk to the back of the school and go to the trailer with the LD sign on it. And I know that I didn't know then, but I knew that kids were probably saying stuff, you know, like, he's not like us. He's not as smart as us. And then when you fail the 7th grade, I'm sure they say that. They even say things like his parents weren't good, which is, you know, my parents are phenomenal.
Amazing parents.
It's all those things start to work into your mind, though, and you start to believe some of those things. Even when I got to college, I was so excited to take English 101. And by the way, I'm the first person to go to college in my family. Neither one of my parents did. Now, they've been absolute successes because of this industry. Yeah. And yet it was a big deal for us. Amazing. And to get to college and understand and learn that because your English is not up to par, that you have to take. I didn't even know they had remedial English in college, and they do, though. So I had to take 090 and 091. So all those things, I think all the failures, what they help you realize is like, do you remember those Weeble Wobbles, those
Oh,
toys?
totally. Yeah,
Their little saying is you can knock them down, they come back up.
that's right.
Well, to me, all the failing did was just understand that it wasn't failure. It was just failing, like I got a chance to do it again. So attempt number one didn't work. Well, now I get attempt number two. And that helped in every avenue of my life. It helped me in sports, helped me in school. It would help me in business. It would help me in my relationships. So it taught me that nothing was final until I stopped. I just get to go do it again, which is, once you understand that, it change, like you'll run to failure if you can understand that it's it's a cheat code to get to success.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we did it. That's the plus from it.
So what were your lessons then? I mean, those are some big lessons. So after college, after football, so football was probably a lot of your identity because it kind of got you the golden ticket to go to college, which you're the first of your family. That's just incredible. I mean, you can be so proud of that. And I do know your parents, at least I know your mom really well, and she's incredible. So I can only imagine how awesome your dad is, but you think about that. So you're playing football and all the things like what happened after that? Because that becomes, and you did that for quite a while, that becomes an identity. How did you then how did that transition go after college and you were going out into the real world?
What's interesting is I didn't even make it through 4 years of football. I tore my ACL, had my second knee surgery as a 19-year-old, and made a choice, like, hey, I'm going to focus on school. I want to be, healthy the rest of my life. And it was a challenge going from a structured life. And what I mean by structured is, when you play athletics in college, you have a curfew, you have people that help you study. You have your food and calories you can eat. They tell you how much to drink after practice. So, my entire life has been kind of structured so that I was kind of unable to get outside that structure. Yeah. And the biggest challenge was when the structure was taken away. Mm-hmm. And then you had, no structure, nobody telling me when to eat and what time to eat and what to eat and what time to study. And here's somebody to help you study. And I had to start making choices for myself. And yet, as you can imagine, I failed my way through those choices for a while too. Yeah. And you're right, the identity thing was tough because that's what you do. We're attached to our identities now and what we do. It's a big part of who we are. The greatest lesson that I probably learned, and this was tough because I did, being a football player, you got some accolades from people and some special treatment. One of the things my mother taught me that was just so valuable, and I use till today, is, do you remember parachute pants?
Do I remember parachute pants? I love that you think, yes, I do, darling. I do.
So
I had a pair, I believe.
Yeah. So one day I was going to wear a pair of parachute pants. You got to remember, I was not designed body-wise for parachute pants. So not all the zippers came up. Mm-hmm. And so I was really embarrassed to go to school that day. I was like, do you think my friends are going to laugh at me? And of course they were. Parachute pants, of course they were going to, But my mom said something to me that was so valuable. She said, Scott, you're so funny. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, you think people think about you. And she said, everybody's thinking about themselves. They're worried about what they're wearing today. And at the time, it didn't hit me as much as it did going forward in from college to everything that we've ever done in our life. The reality is nobody cares. Nobody's thinking about me. And once we understand that, it allows us to literally remove the armor in front of us and just be our authentic self. Because nobody's thinking about you.
Oh my gosh, that is so profound. That is so profound. And for you to hear that at such a young age, that's a game changer. I think it took me until about my 30s to realize that nobody really cares. I mean, you're going to have your haters. You're going to have your people that will have their opinions, no doubt. Like, we know that. But at the end of the day, everybody's really worried more about how they look, how they're showing up, right? They don't care about the dang parachute, pants or whatever that is. And that's such a profound, did that change the way you thought about how you show up in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it took me years to understand that fully. I don't think I could comprehend it in middle school to the point that I can now. But so much of anxiety and stress and worry and all of these things aren't based on us. It's based on what we think other people are thinking of us. And as soon as you realize that nobody's thinking of you, it is one of the freest moments that you can get. I mean, I always ask the questions like when people are maybe a little hesitant to lead generate or to do something they've never done before, period. They're always worried about, well, what are they going to think? Or how are they going to judge me? And as soon as you realize they're not thinking about you. You can't even remember the people that called you last week. Why would you expect somebody else to? So I just think once we get past the looking good and being right, it leads us to a whole new path, a whole new world.
I love that you said that, because that reminds me a lot of this morning. I was thinking about courage, and courage is one of my favorite words. You can't see it. So those listeners later on, you can't see it. And those on the podcast, you can't see it, but I'm looking at it. It's above my computer and I look at it every day, and it's a silver sign that says courage, just spelled out.
Nice.
Because I think courage is one of the most powerful things. So by not worrying about what other people think, to me, if you're somebody that cares about what people think, that's courage, right? To not be afraid to fail and move forward, that's courage. And so there was this photo, and I always look at Facebook memories, because it's like, hey, it's my story. I'm just inviting you all to be part of it, right? So you see the kids have, when they were little, whatever, or maybe something you wrote about, and there was this visual that says, fear is what stops you, and courage is what keeps you going. And you talked about that you haven't failed, you're just failing, and you keep learning. And so I was writing that false evidence appearing real, right, is an illusion. It's an illusion, because most of the things you fear is like what people think of you and how you show up. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna be so embarrassed about the parachute pants. You know what? You wearing those pants, you probably inspired some kid to be like, man, I'm gonna be who I am too. You have no idea, right? But courage propels you to create amazing things in your life, to take risks and get into action. And I feel like there's so much fear going on in the world right now. And maybe it's not about the parachute pants. And that's just an example, but
Right.
that's kind of why you'll see me be more open about my music or whatever. Like put yourself out there. It's your life. I used to really be conscious, because people would say, not a lot of people, but there would be one or two people say, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. You're in a business world. And I'm like, it's part of who I am. It's who I am. And the more that I've been my authentic self with the world, guess what? The more the world responds, the more people come up and grab me and say, you inspired me because you did this, or you said that, or you did that music. And I picked up the guitar after 20 years, or I did this or whatever. The more we live our true, authentic lives, and we're not worried about what everybody else thinks.
You nailed it. Well, you find your people, your tribe.
Yeah.
And if we're not going to really and truly bring out our authentic selves, we'll attract a tribe that does not feed us. When we started off and we said that every single day we get up and work with people that we truly love to work with, I think that's only possible because you got to be truly who you are. I'm a fanatical skier. Okay. Like there's very few things I would rather do than go ski, snow ski. Honestly. And so I understand that people, we hustle, and we do hustle a lot. Yet, I'm going to go ski 50 days out of the year. And I ski on a little mountain in Kentucky, or in Indiana that takes about 12 turns to get to the bottom most of those 50 days. And but that's who I am. That's what I'm going to do. And so I think, and we attract the people that are like-minded around us. So that's what it allows us to do.
Scott, this is why you and I are like kindred spirits, right? We're so connected in so many ways. And I just adore and appreciate you as a human so much. One of the things when you say that about skiing, and it made me think about the pictures you post with your family on the ski hill. It just touches my heart greatly, because I grew up on a ski hill, right? Like when I grew up in a little town called Mammoth Lakes, which had so few people going to the ski hill once a week since I was 5 years old. And then we moved to the Tahoe area, and once a week I'd be on the mountain. And for some reason, as an adult, when I went on to do my my career in LA and I went on to Germany and all the things, I forgot that I'd forgotten that part about myself. And about 3 years ago, right when I was starting this whole transformation of myself and coming back to me, instead of just dropping my son off to snowboard, I got on the ski hill again. And I had all this fear around it, right? Here we talk about fear, not what other people would think, but I had fear like, well, can I still do it? I'd done it all my life, but Scott, it had been at least 15 years, probably 20. And I got on those skis, and my older sister, she's a competitive skier. You know, I've always been more recreational. Like I do it for the enjoyment of it. I was more a volleyball player. I had fear on the chairlift all the way up, like debilitating, like, okay, don't have a panic attack. You got this. You got this. Cause it was almost like fear of heights, because it was like, okay, can you do this? Can you do this? And I got off that ski hill and I did a baby run first, just, a little one that I could make sure I did it. Man, I couldn't get back on that ski lift fast enough. And I had tears falling down my face, Scott, because I was in the beautiful mountains, which is I relate to that totally. It's like a spiritual experience when you're on the mountain in the snow, when it was something you truly love. And yet I had forgotten or neglected that part of myself. Well, now I get ski passes every year to make sure that I'm not doing 50 days. So you inspire me. That may change in the near future. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we're seeing that a lot in the world. As the older we get, or we get set in our ways, or whatever, COVID changed us, people have forgotten their joy. They have forgotten who they are, right? And I'm seeing a lot of people who really want to get back to that and they don't know how. And so how would you as a coach like help people find those passions in their life again? Because don't you think that's going to make life so much more fulfilling? And wear the parachute pants, ski on the ski hill, right?
I don't know if I would wear the parachute pants. That's just me though. Now here, yeah. And
you wouldn't wear it because you wouldn't want to, not because you cared of what people
I don't
think.
care what other people think. I just know that I don't want to wear them again. Well, I think it's yeah, I think it's easy to say, like, I think it's easy to say that, hey, go find your passions and go do this and go do that. I think it's also kind of a responsibility. I don't think about death all the time, but I'm very aware that that's one thing we have in common. And as much as I love people and have met a lot of people, I read this article one time that says the average person has 4 people cry at their funeral. 4. And, I have my wife who, I married well. And so I love her tremendously. I think she's going to cry. My kids, and then I'm still hunting for one. And for a lot of times now, again, like people see you where you're at, not where your journey has taken you. I mean, there's been lots of years that I didn't ski. We worked and I love what I do, and it doesn't always feel like work. And it took time away from my wife, took time away from my kids. And I think as you start to realize what's important, you get your kind of your North Star. It makes other things easier to choose. So I don't want to make less money. Okay. I don't want to do less, bolds. I love what I do. Like, yeah, I mean, I know that people say this, but I truly love what I do. I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life since I've been in real estate. I just feel like I get up and play a game. So now I go, okay, well, what does that game really look like? Well, for me, the perfect game is I'm riding my mountain bike in the summers, I'm skiing in the winters. I'm getting to hang with my kids as much as I can. We're going to go do things. I'm going to have as many breakfasts and lunches and dinners. I'm going to sleep with my wife at night as much as I can. Yet, I travel, 20% of the year.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's just being aware of the moment. One of the things you talked about was fear. And what I've come to learn, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, is that now is the moment where fear doesn't live. Fear is just, you're thinking of what's coming. It's not even real. So if I can just be where my feet are, and it's a challenge, I mean, it is. But if I'm with my wife, be with my wife. If I'm with the kids, be with my kids. If I'm with my parents, be with my parents. If I'm doing this, be with you right now. It doesn't matter the outcome of this or what I have to do after this. Like, just be where your feet are planted, and fear can't live there. That makes sense?
Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And I love that. And in fact, sometimes I think for people that are feeling um down or depression or fear or something, it's usually an inactivity moment or something. And so they're letting their thoughts get the best of them, right? So I notice if I ever get in a moment where, because we all have this, I mean, come on, let's not kid ourselves. We are all works in progress, right? No, there is no such thing as perfection. So if I'm feeling down or whatever, when I find myself getting into action or getting into movement, or it could be as simple as putting on different music and, change the music and get up and walk around, whatever, call somebody, get into action, it changes your whole energy. And I think I love that concept of now is the moment where fear doesn't live.
Yeah. Because you're just now. I mean, you're not in the past, or you're not reliving a story, and you're not, dictating one in the future. So it just can't live in the moment that you're in, which is awesome.
I love that. And I love how you said you're playing a game, you're playing a game. It's almost like you're gamifying everything that you do, which brings me to my question that I ask every guest on the show is, Scott Toombs, what does playing to win look like for you?
Um, Plan. By the way, I love the title of that. Just so you know, plan to win to me is just exhausting every fiber. Uh, not outcome. Like I not like, forget the outcome. I can't control that. But what I can control is the effort, the passion, and the skill of what I do. And so I don't know what the outcomes could be. I honestly don't. And I don't really care, because I know that if I can do the actions, do it with the right passion, and learn the right skills, then I'll have an outcome that we can't even imagine, probably. So to me, that's how we play to win.
Gosh, I love that. So it's really controlling the what's in front of you, like how you're showing up today, how you're
It's
showing up
controlling,
in the moment.
controlling the only thing we can control, the way that we think and the actions that we take.
Right.
And that's it. And so, well, have you ever lost? Have you ever gone on an appointment and not gotten it? Have you ever, asked me on a date and didn't get it? I mean, all these things have happened to us over and
Right.
over and over again.
Yeah.
It's not the outcome. It's the when we talk about journeys, and this has been a very challenging thing for me, is I want the outcome. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I love to play a game, but I love to win too. Or I should probably say I hate to lose more than I like to win. Um, and yet understand that the way we predict those things on the outside or make those happen are about what we choose to focus on. And that's our journey. Like, when we do that, we're winning. In the end, when you lay your head down at the end of the night, I just ask myself, did I give my all to the things that were important to me today? And that's all I can control. And that's how you're going to win, regardless of what the scoreboard says. You're winning. Just might, I think Gary said at one time that we don't have wrong goals. We just have kind of bad time frames. If we just keep doing the journey.
Talk more about that. That's interesting.
Well, would I have loved to have had financial success at 25? Yes, but I would probably have to take actions to do that. And my actions were, I lived in Montana in a cabin to make enough money in the summer to ski all winter. So financial success was not in my radar. But that part of my journey has impacted me today. So, it's a journey. I think we so bad want to get to the end of our story instead of understanding that that's not it. Like, enjoy that journey.
Yeah.
The guy that owns Patagonia, I can't remember his name, or maybe I can't pronounce it well. He did this great documentary, and they were climbing a peak, and he's 74 years old, and they get almost to the peak. Okay. And he said, I'm not going to go up. I'm going to stop. And the guy goes, you're going to come all this way and not peak it. And he says, that's where we're different. You think it's about the peak. I think it's about the journey. And it always just reminds me, like I don't always know the outcomes. I don't know if we're going to hit goals. I do know, though, that I'm going to get to grow and learn today and have fun doing it and get better. And tomorrow be, hopefully, 1% better than I was today. Or if not, then maybe the next day I'll get 1% better.
I love that. Yeah, I love Scott. I love that so much, because I always tell people too, is like, so much of life it reveals itself with time, because what you want to have happen will change too. So you become a different person. So the more you play all in the now, right now, and you're authentic and you're true to yourself and you're listening to yourself and you're growing and you're learning from your failures. I love how Tim Grover said, when you fall down, take a second and be like, okay, ouch, that hurt, that hurt, like acknowledge it, but don't dwell on it. And then when you get up, you're stronger, more intelligent and stuff. And you're going to learn, well, next time I'm not going to step that way or whatever, because we're all better from our mistakes, if we learn from them. Right. And that's the goal of life. And yet your journey will unfold. So if the whole time you're just thinking about the end result, oh my goodness, you miss all the best parts, right? Really.
Well, you think, it's kind of like with Renee, my wife. She does things that, without her, I wouldn't be able to live a life that I've had. Like she's a special person. But it's not the vacations or the gifts at the holidays or a birthday, all those things. It's the fact that on a Saturday morning, she gets up and makes homemade biscuits and gravy. Last night, we took a walk around our neighborhood. We got to enjoy like the process of having a relationship, the process of becoming a leader, the process of having success. Those are our opportunities.
Yeah, it's so true. And how you spend your time, right? How you're spending your time, who you're investing it with. Well, let's talk about bold a little bit. Like, how did you get into that? Like, how did you become a bold coach? Because that's really a calling. Everybody knows that that was something that really spoke to me early on in my career. Before I came to Austin, I literally had considered doing that. But it was the travel and things like that. I had little kids. So I get why you would, but I'd love to hear how you got involved with that and what made you say yes to that and why you continue to do so today.
Well, really interesting. I'm a what's next person. And I used to think that was a positive thing, and it is. But what I also discovered is it's also a lack of wanting to go from E to P. So we all have those entrepreneur kind of ceilings that we hit, and mine seem to be pretty high. So I can get very comfortable being an entrepreneur and get pretty high to a point, and then I'll say, you know what, what's next? And so I did this. I was an OP of 2 offices, and honestly, I thought that just a story. I thought David Jones got a regional opportunity, and I didn't understand why. So I asked Wendy if there's ever an opportunity, I'd love to look at it. And then she introduced me to Linda and Jimmy McKissick, which are, like the people who come into my life are just amazing. And then that led to me meeting Diana one time at an event in Boston, and her dropping the thing, and just a little thing in my mind. It says, "Have you ever thought about this?" And so I thought about it, and I said, "Okay, I'd love to do it." I've only taken bold a couple of times at that point in 2010, as in another time, so I didn't really understand the depth of it. So I auditioned, I did it, and believe it or not, yeah, I like it. I mean, to me, selfishly, people think that I love asking a bold coach, why do you coach bold? And the response overwhelmingly seems to be because we get to help people. And I wish that was my answer, but it's not. Like, I selfishly do bold for one reason, and that's so that I can continue to live a bold life. It's for me. It just happens to be other people in the room. So, to me, it's selfish. I get it, but where else can I live in this? Like, some people say I've taken bold 13 times. Well, I've taken it 140 times. I've submerged myself in this world. And even 3 years into it, though, I called my coach and I said, "What's next? What's next?" And that's when he goes, "Scott, again, you're funny." He goes, "You think you're being entrepreneurial by looking for more opportunity, and really all you are is scared to really master anything."
Wow.
And I was like, and that was 7 years ago. And he was absolutely right. And so as I've continued to go and master bold, the life, this course, it's helped me in every way of my life. I mean, it's helped my health. It's helped my relationships. It's, my kids. I mean, I told you I'm in my son's room because we, have it, and this is his stuff from Quantum Leap.
I was like, yeah, did you put those up for the call, or, he's got
No.
all these cool visuals? No.
This is his stuff.
Wow.
So when I look at that, and you start to, so the reason why I stay in it is selfish for me. Like I want a bold life. I love what I do. And I understand that I don't change anybody's life. They have to change it, you know? I mean, it's kind of like 100% of diets work, less than 1% of people stay on a diet.
Yeah.
So bold works 100% of the time for the people who do bold. You know, the couch to 5K works for everybody who actually does the program. So I always, that's what I do it for. And that's why I continue to do it. And that's why I don't see myself not doing this. I just think I don't believe, I'm not saying that, you know, like a bluebird fell and landed on my shoulder, but I can tell you this though, like the opportunity to do this for the last decade has been one of the most amazing experiences in my life. And so I get up every day with a tremendous amount of gratitude that I ever get to walk back into a room. And people have been in my bold rooms, and I'm not bragging about me, but I am authentically childlike excited every single time I walk into that room.
I love that.
I get to learn.
I love that. And this is why I'm so excited that October 12th,
Yeah.
2023, you will be walking into Austin, and we'll be at the Southwest Market Center and doing Fall Bold. We've had you before, but it was the virtual thing. So we tried to do a hybrid role, if you remember that.
Yep.
And I got a little bit in trouble. I'm like, I'm doing hybrid. I'm going to have people in the room, but we're going to be on the thing. We're going to make this work. And I had headphones for everybody. I was trying to bring Scott to the room live, and everybody's like, that's not possible. It's COVID. I'm like, we just watch me, you know, but I respect, Scott, I respect so much what you just said. So you've been a bold coach for, is it 10 years now, or how long have you?
January of next year will be 10 years.
That's fantastic.
Amazing.
It's a fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And, you know, I love that so much, what you just said. And I hope people that hear that, whether they're an agent or they're in a leadership role or whatever, I hope you hear what Scott just said. I hope you hear what he just said. And, you know, people ask me all the time, you know, August 1st, I celebrated 16 years as a team leader. Now I've relaunched 3 different market centers through those years. It's the same role, different people, different scenarios. Oh my gosh. And I tell people all the time, the last 3 years, had I missed that, that was my PhD, right? The last 3 years have been my PhD because they've been the most challenging of all of it. So had I had not had those, you know, 13 years before that, I don't know how to handle that. Honestly, it took me 13 years to be able to handle the last 3 years of my character and my, what has been thrown at me, to be able to handle it with grace. And so I tell people ask me all the time, why do you still do that? Like, how do you still, why do you still do that? And I just say, the day that I don't feel that I'm making a difference or contributing, I do it because I want to, not because I have to. Yeah. That's the difference. I'm doing it because I choose to do it, not because I have to. And so you saying being a what's next guy, you know, and I've been an OP 6 of those years, been there, done that, right? I used to think I wanted to be a regional director. I know now that I don't, you know, like the more you're in it, you know, I used to think I wanted to run KWI when I moved to Austin 12 years ago. I definitely know that is not exact at all. I know whatever I do, maybe I can still do team leader and that. Like, I love what I do. I love what I do. And so I think for people that think there's always a next something, like you have to do something to get something, I feel like you are missing the journey, kind of, right? You are missing out on a lot of the good stuff, and you can build that around where you're at. So yeah, do the what's next. If the what's next is your next natural organic step for you, but don't force it. I've said no to a lot of opportunity. I could walk out the door today and I have a gazillion ways I could go. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's because of Keller Williams, and it's because of all the relationships, Scott, all the relationships that you and I have. And isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yep.
But we stay because we love it, and you live in the moment, and you give your all every day. And that's why it doesn't really matter in a year or 2 or 3 what position you or I or anybody that's listening holds. If you show up as your best self every day, and when you have failures, you take it with grace, or you have pain and disappointments, we all have them. But it's a lifetime journey, and you're never done, right? I mean, if we're done, we're in trouble, because then we are not around. So let's talk a little bit more about like, I'm really excited about Bold actually right now, because leading in the now is, you know, I did an episode that actually in the podcast, it'll be the one right before this one when I air that one. And I had just a handful of my leaders that I've known for a long time on there with me, talking about leading in the now. What's their lesson? And there were so many about just there's a lot of hardship out there. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of fear, right? And so there's a statistic in Austin that's flying around like crazy. I don't know if you heard my live I did the other day. There's about 19,800 agents in Austin on the Austin Board of Realtors, okay? Almost 20,000. Of that, half of them have done 0 deals this year. Another 10,000 have done 1 deal for the year. And 394 agents, okay? 394 agents have done 2 or more deals per month year to date through August 7th.
Out of 19,000.
Yes, 19,800. And that is like a 2% or something. So my whole concept is, how do you what separates the 98% from the 2%? And I believe number one's mindset, it's all the things. And that's where I think bold, honestly, really comes into play, because if you're not in that 2%, like you're seeing a lot of posts where people are congratulating themselves like, woohoo, I'm in the top 2%. Like, yeah, that's great. If you're doing 2 or more a month, congratulations. Keep doing what you're doing. I taught career visioning yesterday. I had a guy in there and he showed me his numbers. He's great agent. His name's Jordan. And he showed me his numbers. He said, I just want to show you, this is where I am. Cause I was walking around while they were doing some of their, work that they're doing in the room. And he did 30 million last year total. Well, this year, as of August, he will have done 30 million.
Wow.
Because a lot of what I'm saying is, hey man, if you're breaking even with last year, you're ahead of everybody else, because everybody else is down 30 to 40%. Yep. So the fact that he's actually ahead. So why does somebody like that, why is he winning? What's the differentiator between the people that are doing 2 or more per month? Now, of course, we know it doesn't count new homes. It doesn't count off markets. Doesn't matter. It's still apples to apples, because it's just a number on the scoreboard, right? There's no emotion around it. There were 394 people that did 2 or more transactions through the MLS year to date per month. Period. End of story.
That's amazing.
So isn't that amazing? It's fascinating when you really look at that. And I think it was 7% had done like 1 a month, right? So 7%, and then of that 7%, 2% have done 2 or more a month of that big number. So that's where I get really excited about bold. Because there's a lot of courses you can go to, there's a lot of classes you can go and sit, but bold is a coaching program. So I would just love to spend a little time on why you think, I know why I think, and they're sick of listening to me, but I would love to hear why you think now is such a good time, because I've heard you talk about that a little bit.
Well, a couple of things. Let me start it this way. If not bold, what? Like, what's going to change that number? And it doesn't matter what the other 19,800 choose to do or not. It's what are you going to do different than you've done so far this year? So to me, bold was written for this moment. And I wish that there was something that you could take, that you could get a shot for, that you could dress a certain way and have the outcome that you desire in real estate. I do, because I would get it in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, though, that's not it. The difference between the top 2% in Austin and everyone else is the top 2% has the same hours in the day that you do. They have the same people that have to take listings and buyers from. Okay, they're choosing to think differently during that time and take a different action. And I wish that I could sit here and say that bold is the magic. The bold itself isn't magical. It is the coaching and conditioning and being accountable to taking an action that changes everything. It changes everything. It's why we have coaches. It's why when you get a trainer, you are more likely to succeed in your health goals than you are without one. It's why you have a financial planner. People with who have financial planning in their life have a greater amount of wealth than everybody else does. Well, to me, that's what bold does. It helps you think to take action. One of the things I love to ask the question is this, and it's only us two right now, but if you're listening, you can play along with this. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to, just raise your hand if you've heard it before and you know what it means. And if not, you can Google it, okay? Lead generation. And what I've noticed, Melanie, is that everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows what it is. And if you ask somebody, how important is lead generation to your business on a scale of 1 to 10, somebody always yells out 14. And then you ask the question, well, if you know what it is, you know how important it is, what kept you from doing it purposefully yesterday? See, we're in an industry where knowing what to do, Google's real estate script, you'll get 1.8 million pages if you want. It is the accountability and mindset to take action. You know, Jason Abrams said it perfectly one time. He says, sometimes we teach fearful people fearless tactics. And that's tough, right? You're a fearless person. So all you need is, hey, what do I do? Okay, here's the model. You're like, boom, that's the model. Okay. Majority of people have some fear. They look at the model and they say, oh, I don't want to do this part of the model. And what we've discovered in Bold, when we work on this, we have accountability to people in a room. We'll do things we wouldn't normally do. And if we can do it for 7 weeks, we'll create new habits. And that's why Bold has changed the trajectory of people's lives. And over 250,000 people have been through Bold. That's the opportunity.
I love that you touched on the fear part, because that's exactly how I see it, Bold. Excuse me. Oh, gotta love the Austin allergies. Any time of year is allergies in Austin because I always sound like this. It's terrible. Excuse me. Good thing I can edit that out later for podcast live listeners. I'm so sorry. It's the whole Demi Moore thing. It's fear, and we talked about that early on. False evidence appearing real. It's like for some people, you know, they hear, and I love that Jason said that. I love when he said that, because you're right. You and I are fearless people, right? We can just say, okay, what's it going to take? And then let's go. Right. Fine. Because we might fail a little. I might be bruised on the hip. I might, maybe I have a scar back here. You don't see all the things. Right. But you know what? It's going to make me who I am. It gives me character. Right. I'm not going to be afraid of that. And boy, do I have a lot of fun. I'm sure you do too. Right. But there's so many other people that are like, oh my gosh, the idea of taking action, I can't even imagine. And that's why career visioning's the passion, my class that I teach, and that's my passion. So yesterday I was in the room and I keep that fearless thought in my head as I'm teaching that, because for me, I'm not afraid to take risks, right? I'm not afraid of any of that. But simplifying the process on how important that is to bring the right people into your life, right? When you can simplify that, like I had a lot of fearful thinking people in that room. And I could tell by the end of the day, they're like, oh, especially the new revision. If any of you have not taken the newly revised written career visioning, I highly recommend it. Take it near you. The simplification of that. And when you can help people that have a little bit more fear, the simplification of here's the plan. That's why I think the playbooks are so brilliant.
Love them.
The playbooks, here's the book. The book here, if you listeners, you can't see, I'm showing the Millionaire Real Estate Agent playbook that was published at Mega Camp here. And it has just hundreds of one-pagers of here's the playbook. Now all that's left, though, is making a decision to get into action, because if you're fearful about it, you're in overwhelm, and in overwhelm, you'll do nothing. Yep. So by breaking it down and having maybe sessions weekly on the different playbooks or whatever, but find something, because it doesn't have to be everything, right? It has to be one thing and move forward. And that's why I think this, having the courage to find that thing. And I think we just have to remember that there's a lot of fear-based people. And I think that's what Bold is just especially the master at, because it's such it's a repetitive every week. It's habits. It's right. You're failing forward in the room and you're having wins. And so your brain is being acknowledged for, okay, look, it pays off to, after my last Bold with the spring we did with David Jones, my good friend, I'm interviewing people around the room. I had one gal, she had 17 buyers in her pipeline. Yeah. 17. And then another person who was a recruit that I had just recruited while Bold's happening, and he was in there and he joined one of my awesome teams here. He was about to leave the business. He's 12 years in the business, super talented guy, awesome guy, great guy. Never would have considered Keller Williams, but a friend connected me, all the things. I got him right in Bold. Scott, he has 7 closings he closed this month.
Isn't that awesome?
7.
And and the only thing that changed was him.
That's right.
It's interesting. You brought this up about the fear. Do you know that when you're in a group of people, you're more likely to do things you wouldn't normally do? Yeah, I always use my kids as an example. My son was, do you remember when hoverboards came out at first? Well, my parents bought us 3. Okay, for some reason, my daughter, my son, and I guess for a friend or myself. And one day, Corbett and 2 of his buddies get on them, and they tell my wife, they said, Mom, we're going around the neighborhood. We have a big circle in our neighborhood. And my mom says, just stay in the neighborhood. And we get a call about 30 minutes later from one of the teenagers that lived down the street saying that from their mother saying that Corbett and 2 buddies are on Highway 22 backing up traffic because they're on their hoverboards on the highway. Okay. And I went to pick them up because I knew they were going to the gas station. And I said, what were you thinking? And he said the simplest thing, I wasn't. It's just him by himself. If you said, go do that, he just said no. Add 2 people to it, and they all 3 went. And to me, bold, when we get in teams like that, we will do things when we tell somebody else. If I say, Melanie, I'm going to do this for you, I'm more likely to do it than if I just say I'm going to do it for myself. Everything in that room is designed to break you through so that you have a different outcome. There's nothing in there with fluff. We work so hard to change your thinking so that you will change your action. Because if we can change those 2 things, you will absolutely change your outcome.
That's
the power of it.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And so that's why I'm so excited that we get to do the work with you all fall. I cannot believe that the hour is already like over. So I knew this would go fast, but Scott, I want to ask you, what's the last parting thoughts for our listeners today on whatever you want to discuss, but playing to win, just living your life to the fullest. You've touched on a lot of things, breaking through fear, wherever you want to go with it. But
right.
let's wrap it up with one last thing you want to talk about.
Well, I said this at Mega Camp, and I truly do believe it. You talked about lead generation, having the playbooks there, and there are so many plays in that book. And if I could tell agents and leaders is, don't go out and work hard to be average at everything. Find a lane and go master it. If you're not going to pick up the phone and call people, then stop doing that and figure the way that you are going to create relationships with people and go do that. But go get good at something. That's what I would say.
I love that. And in fact, we would invite you to come get good at something with us in Bold. Don't wait till October, but start practicing so that you can really get great at it in Bold with us over 7 weeks. Everyone's invited. It'll be at the Southwest Market Center at 1801 South Mopac, October 12th. We'll start sharp at 8:30. And just Scott, I'm excited to do Bold again with you, but in person. And so I will personally be attending, and I will be bringing a lot of people with me just to experience you and experience that magic that happens in the room. Because I believe as leaders, it's our job to take a stand for people's greatness. Yeah. That's what we do every day, is how we show up, how we pour into others, how we open doors for people. Yeah, they have to go through them.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all up to them. It's a choice. But when our people have people in their lives that are opening doors and things like that, walk through it, guys. Yep. Take a stand for yourself. I mean, when I saw those numbers, Scott, 394 people, right? Yep. 2%. And I thought, wow.
19,500 people that should be in there, and the 392 should be in there because those other 19,000 should be coming after them.
That's right. Exactly.
That's how I see it.
Exactly. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're doing Bold, because in reality, if when someone hears that number, like that is not a big stretch to do. No. To be in the top 2%, 2 deals a month.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's so doable, right? So anyway, so I would just invite everybody to come join us. And also just Scott, thank you for all that you do in the world. You make our world a better place. And I feel honored to call you a friend, and I cannot wait to have you in Austin with us.
No, I appreciate you so much. I trust you know that.
Yeah, I know that. I appreciate you. And thank you to our listeners. And we'll see you on the next episode of Playing to Win next week. Next week, I have Gina Ront on, and I'm very excited. Speaking of Bold, that's funny. I didn't make that connection, but Gina Ront is like the poster child, right? Where he went from like 400,000 GCI to, multiple millions, and couldn't be a humbler, nicer human. So next week, it'll be a different time, 11 o'clock for our live listeners. And Scott, thank you for being on today. I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you. You have a great one.
All right. See you later. Bye. Bye.